A very terrible story and tragedy from the heart of Virginia. Goblins and Satan invaded him and took his life in a terrible way. Be with me to experience a few minutes of fear. Cold and dark winds swept through the interior of Virginia School. This old and abandoned school was located in the middle of a dark and forgotten forest since we heard about jinn and otherworldly creatures. Now, in this dark and lawless night, the school, which had been dormant for years, had woken up. That night, excitement and fear were in the old school air. Shocking sounds could be heard from the upper floors and darkness was created on the windows and doors as if by an unwanted event. The old walls of the school, which had witnessed many times of terrible bloodshed, now bore signs of the presence of evil spirits. In the main hall of the school, a little moonlight shone in through the broken windows and reflected on the old floor. The sound of trembling footsteps in the dark made the heart of anyone near the school beat faster. This residential school is haunted by evil forces that have taken over everything. From the upper floor of the school, the voice of desperate and scary screams could be heard. The jinns were looking for their new victims and no one could escape them. Any hope and confidence that used to flow within the walls of this school had been completely destroyed. Despite all the fear, a brave teenager named Michael decided to investigate this terrible school. He entered the school alone and bravely and prepared to discover the secrets hidden within its walls. Scary adventures were waiting for Michael. A story that is very scary to even think about. Stay with me to continue the story. Michael entered the school with a pounding heart and trembling hands. Everything here had changed unfavorably. Strange and inexplicable sounds could be heard from all over the school, and the feeling of evil spirits was in the air in his office. He moved to the second floor. In the rooms that were once filled with laughing young people eager to learn, mysterious voices were now heard and mysterious blue lights illuminated the rooms. Michael passed through the doors and windows and saw on the walls paintings of demons and scary creatures. With a chaotic imagination, Michael moved towards the main hall. But he faced the stairs in front of him. The stairs were covered in a mirage of blood, and every step Michael took sounded like the screams of the dead. He moved on the stairs with fear and went to the upper floor. On the third floor, Michael noticed a ceiling covered in spider webs. That spider was moving strangely and searching on the walls. Disappointing sounds could be heard from the upper floors, and Michael felt that he might be attacked by demons at any moment. With shaking hands, Michael entered the main room of the school. Here, a terrifying sight befell him. Tables and chairs were scattered and started to move before you could get to them. Screams and moans could be heard from upstairs, and Michael was trying to find his way through the chaos. In one of the side rooms, Michael saw something terrible and unfortunate. Michael stood in the side room and glanced into the fearful eyes of one of the demons hiding in the shadows. This goblin with red eyes and always shaking, looked like an evil spirit. In this terrible dream, the demons approached him and with strange sounds and breaths of bitter smell, they drowned Michael against their power. In his dreams, Michael sees himself walking in the deep darkness of the school. The demons approach him and with the sounds that come out of their mouths, scare him and trample him. He gets stuck in the walls of the school and cannot escape. Demons chase him in every corner and shake his soul with their sinister breaths. In one of the dreams, Michael sees himself in a dark and mysterious room. The demons approach him and surround him with hands that are like fiery bends. He hears sounds like internal screams, and the more the demons get closer to him, the more afraid he gets. While trembling with fear, he turns to the wall in the dream and tries to get rid of this storm of fear. In other dreams, Michael finds himself in a large hall at school. Goblins with red eyes and evil breaths in the moonlight have surrounded him in front of an abandoned table. He hears strange voices from afar, and the demons shake the table with their hands full of blood and rage and move towards him. Michael realizes with great fear that the demons are after his life and soul and want him at any cost. Michael's nightmares continue. If you like the story so far, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to be notified of the next video. Michael, breathing heavily and his heart beating in his chest, was looking for a way to escape from this most terrible prison that had been transformed into a demonic possession. He looked at the walls of the school with the precision and intelligence that could overcome his fear under these dire circumstances. On one side of the school, Michael walks in a door of an old and mysterious house. On each floor he climbs the stairs, he comes across a new secret. Every time he reaches Derby, he experiences a scary and terrifying encounter. Doors that open with melodious sounds lead to rooms filled with eerie shadows, pitting Michael against dark and evil creatures. Michael succumbs to fear and stress, but uses his strong will to explore each room hand by hand. He strangely arrives at a derby with something hidden behind it. Bravely, he opens the door and seeing goblin eyes looking at him, he finds a belt with the word, "Escape." Taking quick steps, Michael fearlessly enters the next room. In this room, the goblins observe him and pressurize him with dark voices and evil breaths. But Michael, having a strong will and with all his concentration, ties the "escape" belt around his waist and starts to run away. He darts from room to room at high speed, quickly opening doors and passing through their darkness. No matter how much the demons try to stop him, he pushes himself forward with infinite motivation. Suddenly, Michael reached a dark and deep lake. But instead of water, demons with red eyes and evil breaths were waiting for him there. He realized that this lake is not water, but spiritual, and the demons show their power to him in its heart. It was here that Michael realized that it was not enough to escape from this nightmare with a strong will. Frustrated and disappointed, Michael felt that the demons were more trapped in this dark and terrifying world than before. He goes to his head with his hands and thinks it's all over. But at that moment, a familiar voice is heard from far away. A voice from the darkness is overturned and a ring of light appears around him. A mysterious and bright figure approaches Michael and leads him to the exit from this dark world. This character had conquered the demons in front of him with calmness and strong power. He was a skilled warrior who possessed strong brightness and light. Michael, given the hope that this character's presence gives him, gathers his energy and moves towards the exit behind this character. The demons try with all their might to stop him, but this character's luminous power wins them over. When Michael reaches the exit, he feels calm and safe. A new world full of light opens before him and demons cannot follow him. With this luminous character, he reaches safety and peace and sees himself in the hands of light. At this moment, suddenly, Michael wakes up. Breathing fast and heart still beating in his chest, he looks around and realizes it was all a dream. But this is not the end of the story, because many unfortunate events are waiting for him. After waking up from that horrible nightmare, Michael feels relieved. But this feeling is short-lived, because his inner fear and doubt remain. He tries to convince himself that it was just a dream and that there is no longer any threat. But is it really so? Back to normal days, Michael goes to school and tries to lead a normal life. But late fears and dark images from past nightmares still flow in his mind and heart. He continues to search for artifacts that reveal a frightening truth. On a rainy and dark day, Michael finds a strange writing on his desk. It spells out, "Terrible," in dark, scribbled letters. He gets scared and his heart starts beating fast. Where does this fear of the unknown come from? He knows something bad is going on. Michael follows up and notices that these posts appear in different places on a daily basis. He sees these dark letters on the windows, doors and even in the school office. When he tries to talk to others about these writings, no one sees them. Only he understands this monster. He is more afraid of these writings. In this despair and madness, Michael begins to search for the origin of these writings. He is looking for any way to find peace again. But with every step he takes, more darkness creeps in and threatens his achievements. Over time, Michael comes to the conclusion that all these horrors are not just mind games. Something is out of her hand, a dark and unknown force that is trying to pull her towards it. He decides to seek help to deal with this threat. Michael looks at all his sources and repositories of knowledge, looking for any information about dark forces and demons. Meanwhile, he comes across a special old book that seems to help him. This book is called Grammarium of Darkness, and it is written about indescribable forces and the rules that control them. Michael turns the pages of this book with excitement and fear, looking for any clues. Among the pages full of strange signs and symbols, he finds a hidden page. This page is clearly about ways to avoid being possessed by goblins. But to implement these methods, Michael needs certain elements scattered throughout the city. Michael decides to look for these elements. During the dark and rainy nights, he goes to the alleys and dark streets of the city and looks for signs that will lead him to these elements. But at every step he takes, he faces terrible threats. Goblins are looking for him and trying to capture him. With all the courage and determination he has, Michael faces the dangers that threaten him along the way. But can he collect these elements and prevent the goblins from taking over? Or will the goblins strengthen their power and trap Michael? I don't think so. On a dark and rainy night, Michael returned home with the last item he needed in hand. He feels that he has finally won and managed to escape from the goblins. But at the moment he steps into the house, a dark and unknown step approaches him. Michael turns his eyes towards it in horror, and as he takes a step back, he realizes that it is a goblin. The goblin comes closer to Michael with a scary voice and breaths like cold wind. With his heart pounding, Michael musters the last of his strength and fights for survival. But the power of demons is much greater. The goblin takes Michael in his arms and tries to take all his will and life from him. Michael fights hard, but the power of the goblin's penetration into him increases. He thinks about all his memories and what he lost their friend. The goblin wraps his fingers around Michael's neck and strengthens his strength. The soulless voice of the goblin makes Michael feel like he is falling into a dark and lifeless peace. As life drains from Michael's body, he tries to help others with the last of his strength. He tries to send a voice for help, but that voice is lost in the darkness of the night. The goblins violently attempt to take Michael's life and drag him into their dark world. As the goblin increases its power against Michael, he feels a heavy darkness within him. A coldness creeps through his fingertips and rushes to his heart, as if the devil is penetrating him. In the last moments Michael whispers something. He says, "This is not a story but my bitter history." He repeats this sentence and the color of his face becomes snow white, and his fate sends him to the dark and cold hell. Now nothing but evil creatures live in that abandoned place. All the inhabitants of that place were forced to leave one after the other. This was the fate of Michael and his heartbreaking death. If you like my story, please press the like button, and if you have any criticism, write me in the comments. I will be happy to know what you think about the story.